All right, we're live. We are right here live, and just wanted to share with you guys what we're going to be doing today, so that you guys can be ready to learn some cool stuff today. We're going to do training. I even put on my vest and my collar shirt. We'll see if that hits well with the public. All right, so today we're going to talk about logic, how important logic is on a sales call. I mean, logic is important for everything, but one of the weirdest things is that most people ignore logic. And being on the phone and having logic about the things you ask, the things you say, the things you affirm, the things you convey is very important. Also, we're going to be talking about how to get respect and power. I'm reading a little bit right here, so I can follow the right order of things. So, how to get respect and power? Very important for you guys to understand that. All right, in sales, it's important to understand that. That goes along with posture. Posturing, it is important. Okay, it's never about the product, guys. It's about intention. This is a huge mistake a lot of people make when making a sell. They talk a little bit about, especially when you're talking when you're selling an intangible. You're selling something that you can't touch, you can't smell, you can't feel, you can't see. So you talk about intention, right? We'll talk about that, and I'll explain a little bit better what that means. And last but not least, for sure, we're going to be spending 15 minutes just to break it down to an hour, right? So the last one's going to be don't rush the call. A lot of times people get intimidated by people on the phone, by customers and prospects, right? And they just want to rush to the call, or the person has to leave, or whatever. Right? We'll talk about that. All right. So first, let me just say a few hellos here. Rose is right here. Hi, Rosa. Thank you very much for being here. Venture to Excel, always there. Alejandra, always there too. Pantera's here. My one of my fans. What's up, Pantera? Good to have you here. Awesome. All right. I'm sure people are going to start coming in, so we'll talk about all those. We'll say hi to all those people. We got some Pixel. Yeah, Mr. Pixel is right here. Ryan here. Ryan, what's up, man? Good to have you here, man. It really is a pleasure to have you here. Won't be able to in the whole call, but okay, no problem, man. All right, just stay as long as you can. And MTM is howdy. What's up? I really love this crowd. It's pretty cool. All right. All right, guys. So what we're going to be doing right now is we're going to be reacting to some videos, right? And so I want to make sure that we can have the right perspective, not just my perspective, right? Because sometimes what happens is if I just sit here, even though I have 20 plus years of experience and I've done with, I think, I personally believe that I could have a master's degree in psychology because I've done with all kinds of people, um, trying to decipher people's minds and how to get them in the right direction and helping them. I think it's important for you guys to understand that others share the same values in the public sector and also in business. That's very important. So we're going to be sharing. Last time I shared a video, it kind of went south. So I've been kind of practicing really hard for to not let you down, guys. All right. So um, let's see right here. So what we're gonna do is let's see if we have some more people here. Oh, Paul is here. Thank you so much, Paula, for coming. All right. And so we are going to share our first video today. All right. So pay attention, guys. It's not going to be long, right? I'm going to compress this as much as possible so that we don't have to extend. All right. So here we go, guys. This is going to be very interesting, and I hope you enjoy it. Take notes, guys. I take notes all the time. It is important. So um, stay tuned. Let's watch this. All right. Give me 1 second here.
Techniques that we to have better discussions. The first thing she has to say is that logic is built on building
He's
blocks
talking about
called
logic right now.
axioms. Axioms are like rules the irreducible rules that create that logical system. So an example would be Euclid's axioms, where he wrote down 5 simple rules on which our whole understanding of geometry is based. This way of looking at discussions gives us a way of understanding why a right-wing person and a left-wing person, or a conservative and a liberal, might not come to agreement on a particular issue. It's not because they disagree on the substance, it might be because they are working from different axioms. Axioms are really analogous to our fundamental beliefs about a topic. Somebody who is conservative might believe in individual responsibility, that the family unit is an indivisible unit for society, and they might be skeptical of new ideologies. Similarly, liberals might be motivated by axioms about morality, that it's morally good to share out resources amongst all of a people and not to use arbitrary factors such as skin color or race to discriminate between people. Eugenia asks us to think a little bit about what our own axioms might be. Now, she gives us some advice about how we can work out what the axioms are in our own beliefs. So she lists a few different things that she agrees with. She agrees with cancer screening, with the idea of social welfare payments, and believing that survivors of sexual assault should always have a presumption of being believed. Then she asks, well, what are the common features between all of those things? She identifies some intermediate principles that she has that is good to help people even if they might not need it at that time, and that it's important to take evidence seriously even if it leads to unwarranted action. This causes her to realize that there's an underlying belief that it's okay to have false positives as long as you're avoiding false negatives. When you break it down like this, it also gives me a way of saying why I don't agree about that cancer screening example. Is because I think that an enormous amount of harm can come from unwarranted screening, especially if it causes more harm than good. And I prefer a utilitarian approach, that there has to be somewhere in the middle between false positives and false negatives that causes the least amount of harm. Second issue is that logic has limits and a complicated relationship with emotion. Now, we often experience this when we have emotions that overwhelm our logic. And Eugenia tells us about some tactics that we can use to engage our emotions in a more productive way. First example that she gives is about motivating herself to exercise. She realizes that she has a strong emotional reaction to the idea of becoming obese. And this is what motivates her to do her exercise even if she doesn't want to. Similarly, if your emotions are getting out of control in a way you don't like, logic can help us manage them. So a great example of this was when American Airlines, who used to have priority groups for boarding that were called priority groups, and they renamed them groups 1 to 4. This made passengers extremely upset. Now, if they had stopped to think logically, Eugenia argues, then they would have realized that there wasn't actually any change to the boarding system. They were going to get on the plane at exactly the same time and exactly the same order. So why have that silly emotional reaction? Her third lesson is that gray areas are really important. Binary extremes between good and evil are like drawing a line on something that's a spectrum. If you can't say exactly where black starts and white ends, there's a lot of gray area in the middle, and lots of things are like this. Sometimes we need to draw arbitrary lines. For example, when is your bedtime going to be? It could be any time between 7 and 9, but eventually you have to just choose one. Eugenia says that her book is a way for you to always be right about anything. It's always possible to be right as long as you qualify your statement. So an example of this precise language would be the difference between pointing out an opposite and a negation when you're opposing something. So if somebody were to say the EU is fantastic, the opposite would be that the EU is terrible. But the negation would be to say, well, I do not think the EU is fantastic, which is not quite the same as thinking that it's terrible. This is just one way in which we can have more nuanced opinions in our use of language. Final lesson I've taken from her book is that causation is really complicated. People imagine that causation is a line from cause to effect, but actually, it's more like a complicated web of different causes. And I'm trying not to sound too much like Doctor Who.
It's more like a big ball of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
She gives the example, again from a plane incident, where a passenger was booted off the plane after so-called refusing to vacate their seat when instructed. She goes through how actually there were a whole host of other things that caused this, like the fact that the plane was overbooked by the company, the fact that nobody took the offer of money to vacate their seat, the fact that the company decided not to offer more money. And when we think about causation in this way, it becomes very difficult to blame specific individuals or specific circumstances for phenomena that are really more complicated than that. Eugenia says, it is tempting to point the finger of blame at one factor or person, especially if that exonerates ourselves. I believe that it is much more productive to understand the connections of the system. Outcomes are always caused by whole systems, but we can still, as individuals, take responsibility for change. So, what does that change look like? Well, she gives us two different techniques that we can use for breaking down our assumptions into something that's much more logical. First are analogies. So analogies are really important for helping us analyze the principles behind what we think. So
Very
some
important,
people
guys, to
oppose
understand.
universal healthcare
Storytelling.
on the basis that those people really aren't taking responsibility for themselves. And why should other people pay? Let's compare this with an analogy. So we don't expect people to, say, build their own roads. That's something which is done as a public service. So what we're really arguing about is healthcare enough of a public service to be considered essential in that way? Or is it something that you do have the ability to take responsibility for? Personally, I think because healthcare is so bound up in people's education.
All right, perfect, guys. All right. All right. So, in the 20 plus years that I've been working with human beings in the perception of change, right? Everything that I've done since the beginning of this um, career that I decided to take for my life, even though I had options coming from college and doing all the things that, even with college degrees or in technical trades or anything that we do in life, one of the things that I've learned is that one of the least and most underrated concepts is logic. I have no idea why. Logic is underrated, is downplayed, and is not given the credit it deserves. But it's funny when you put people up against the wall with their own thoughts and perceptions, and you, through logic, you make them see how erroneous a perception can be. For instance, I'll give you an example. I've been working with people that want to change their financial life. They want to grow, right? But they always believe that somehow they should be an exception to the rule, and they should never suffer any pain nor make any sacrifices. So here's a question that I want to ask you guys. Throw a question, bounce a question back, an answer. This question with an answer. Um, can anything great happen to you? Anything at all that is great in your life without sacrifice? Now, why am I talking about this when I'm talking about when we're doing high ticket sales? Because the only way that you can convince someone, let me just take that back. There is no way. I was going to say the opposite. There is no way you can convince someone to give you $20,000 over the phone without them understanding the pure logic behind that transaction. Um, so answer this question to yourselves. And I want you to answer this for you because the same way I'm talking to you right now is the way I talk to every prospect. You're the same human being. You come from the same species, right? So if you're right here watching this live event or this recording, when later on when you watch it when it's recorded, um, you're going to be faced with the question: how much do I have to sacrifice? Do I want to sacrifice to get to something better? So tell me, can you get something great in life, or better yet, have you ever gotten anything wonderful in life that requires your effort, without sacrifice? I want you to think about that and throw the answer right now or as soon as you have it, because we're going to be asking questions at the end of every presentation, every video that I'm going to have here. All right. So logic, be logical. When you are convincing someone of something that is beneficial to them, and through that benefit, there's a transaction that's good for you, you're going to have to do this through logic, right? And this starts with you, right? Perfect. So logic, we got that covered. We're going through to the next one, guys. How to get respect and power. This is so logic is it's a difficult concept to understand, but somehow logic, it's something that you already have in you. You just don't understand it. You just don't exercise it. However, the next topic, how to get power through respect, right? And respect and power, this is something we have to learn, that we have to cater, that we have to see, that we have to fix, that we have to assemble, design. This is not something that's innate in everybody. In fact, I believe that 95% of human beings are not meant to be leaders. That's just sad, right? 95% of people on earth are meant to be followers. And you got to choose where you're going to be. If you want to be a follower, you're going to be part of the 95%. There's nothing wrong with that, guys. Nothing wrong with being, but if you're going to be a follower, be a great follower, the best follower you can be, right? How do you know you're a follower? You never take any risk. Followers do not like to take a risk. Followers love to just, find a job, be at a job. They never, they don't have the, I'm not going to say the courage because it takes courage to be a follower, but it's a different courage, right? Leaders take chances. Leaders sacrifice. Leaders believe. Leaders fail many times, and there's only one time where they succeed, and that's the one that makes a difference. So we're going to talk about this, and I'm going to show you this interview. It's extremely interesting in how this guy defines that power over people, right? Um, he's going to use a very interesting example. So we're gonna play it right now, and let's do it. So let me share this screen. Oh, all right, let's do it. Okay, boom, boom. All right. Give me 1 second. Boom.
Cornerstone of power. Through reputation alone, you can intimidate and win. Once it slips, however, you are vulnerable and will be attacked on all sides. Never let others define it for you.
Yeah. So when I wrote the 48 Laws of Power, I've somebody through my whole life loves playing games. I don't mean that in the abstract sense. I mean literally, like chess, backgammon, sports, poker, whatever. And I like the cleanness of a game. It's like you do this and you can win, etc. But there's also a psychological element in it. So particularly when you're playing poker and you're bluffing and I was always fascinated by this. It's a game of chance, You don't really know what cards you're going to get. But that fellow over there, he's been bluffing. He bluffed before. I'm sure he did. He's going to do it again. Right? So the psychology starts entering into the picture in a game of chance. It's not a game of chance. There's skill, certainly skill involved, but a lot of it's chance. And because he bluffed before and he's got that look in his eye, it could be a woman, I don't mean to generalize. All right, I'm going to fold. Okay. So you don't realize that so much of the game of power has nothing to do with data and you being a better person at something. A lot of it is pure psychology and intimidating people and winning before you even enter into a battle. So if you have a reputation, you carry it with you. And the reputation doesn't have to be real. Personally, I don't know how valid this is. I have this reputation now of being this Machiavellian characters, and so if Robert's 5 minutes late for a meeting, it means he's playing a game, even though it's probably just the traffic. But my reputation now kind of put people a little bit on their heels, where it's not necessarily true about me, but it kind of goes ahead of me and it influences.
Reputation precedes you.
Yeah. And so it's an extra form of power. So the idea the overall arching idea to pull us out of the specific is power is pure psychology. Pure psychology. And what I mean by that is the CEO of a company, he doesn't get there based on, it's not like baseball, whereas balls and stars, soccer. Sorry, you probably don't understand. Probably even know
I'm a Ranger. I'm a Texas Rangers fan. I'll have you know.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, it's not like baseball where balls. You have a good batting average or OPS. All right, you're going to get in the lineup. They're going to bat you in the cleanup spot. Okay, life isn't like that. So the way somebody rises to the CEO, and I know because I was on the board of directors of a publicly traded company, is not about metrics. It's not about things that they've actually done. It's about psychology, right? People rise to positions of power because they know how to play the game, and they know how to play the game of psychology. They know how to appear. They know how to play the optics. They know how to intimidate. They know how to say less than necessary. They know all the psychological little gambits. And that's why I wrote the 48 Laws of Power. It's kind of like, this is the game of life, the game of power. The rules are a little bit nebulous, but here's how you play. You play by mastering these little psychological bits. One of them is your reputation.
I'm fascinated by reputation and credibility, especially.
All right. This is a very, very sensitive topic. How we become powerful. Now, he talked about psychology, and it's a psychological game, right? Anything that you do, anything that you suggest for someone to do, and I think I talked about this last time I was here, and this is what's so important, why it is so important, and I've talked about this before because I've been trying to set the mood. I've always, when I train people, one of the first things that I teach them is how to exercise power on their prospect. How to get their prospect to start obeying. Now, this is not the kind of obedience that a child reacts to. It's not the kind of obedience I'm talking about. I'm talking about the obedience that comes through reasoning to objectivity, logic. The obedience that comes from hearing someone that has power, not because he said, I have the power, but because that person, especially when you're on the phone and you're talking to a prospect, you start sounding like someone who's got expertise. You sound like someone, that's why it's so important to have the right tonality in your voice. That's why the right sequence of what you're trying to say, the right pace. You can't go, sometimes you got to go a little bit fast, drop the speed, then you go slow. And those changes of emotions intonations will change the emotion of the conversation, and the sum of all things is going to make people respect who you are because you're being logical, you're being objective, and you're being rational, right? That's important. Am I talking to someone who's rational, or am I talking to someone who doesn't understand what they're talking about? How do they sound when they talk? That's why the pitch of your voice is so important. If you're pitching on video, right, you got to make the right gesticulations, the way you move your hands, the way you move your head, right? You got to be careful with that. And one thing that's very important, this I'm talking about all the uh, patterns of posture, how to position yourself, right? A lot of people that pitch on the phone. That's why I think I talked about this on another live video, and I said it's important that you are dressed appropriately. Appropriately, it is important for you to convey the right energy, right, on the phone because people can hear your state of mind. If you're not properly um, dressed, if you're, I'm not saying you have to wear a tie, a suit and a tie, or a vest. You can be casually uh, dressed, but be respectful of the station where you're working. On in Used to write body motions, right? If you're going to be on the phone, just because nobody's seeing you doesn't mean they're not seeing you, right? The way you move your body, the way you express with your body, the way you talk, 80% of communication is physical, is body language. 20% is right here. It's our words and voice, intonation, all that stuff. But when you're on the phone, and if you're just slouching or you're on the floor, just, sitting on the floor, or you just, you gotta implement body postures that will help people hear the power that comes out of your voice. Your voice comes through your body. It's a vibration that emanates from how you move your body. It's very important that you guys understand that. And that's why I wanted to talk about power. I mean, this guy was talking about poker, a game of chance, and they bluff, right? Poker face, right? Because they want to inflict power and reputation. He talked about reputation a lot, and reputation is an incredible thing because you can build reputation on a sales call. The business of making sales, it's so important. Let me tell you how important it is to be a salesperson. The salespeople across the board are the people that are generating all the jobs in the world. Doctors, engineers, architects, receptionists, nurses. I don't care what kind of job you have, somebody's selling whatever product you are part of creating to somebody else. Henry Ford said, nothing happens until somebody sells something, right? And when you're playing the game of selling non-tangible products, right? It is more important to inflict respect because you don't have a product to show, right? When you sell education, for instance, you're selling a perception. You're selling a something that will be into the future and is going to be a change. Changes are not tangible, right? So just wanted to talk about that, guys. All right, the next, and all these ties into uh, positioning in posture. You'll hear me talk about posture for the entire time that if you see me in about 20 years, I'll still talk about posture, guys, which bleeds into everything. I said that before. All right, perfect. Let's talk about the next issue at hand. I'm not going to use a video. I'm going to talk about this, the last two, right? And the last one, the next one. Oh, I'm gonna ask you a question, guys. All right, another question. So I'm gonna respond to. I'm gonna read the last question we got. Venture to Excel was the only one who answered that question. I can't believe you guys didn't answer that question. Oh my gosh, you guys are not answering questions. You need to answer questions, guys. Our Venture to Excel said nothing in reference to can you make a sacrifice? Can you accomplish something huge in your life, something amazing, something great without sacrifice? And Venture to Excel said nothing. Everything has cost and effort or some effort. Not, I'd say probably a lot of effort, right? Great things don't happen. You got to be proportional, guys. You have to be proportional. I was not going to talk about this, but since Venture to Excel brought it up, and it's not that Venture to Excel is wrong. Venture to Excel is absolutely right. But I'd like to add something else. You live, and I'm going to say something that's very unpopular. Very unpopular. Most people do not like to hear this, and that's because most people live in La La Land. Live is not a fair place. This is not fair. This world is not fair. Life will never give you what you give to life. If you want out of life what you want out of it, you gotta give probably 3 times over. You gotta make sure you run faster than life. I always have this example, and it's sometimes a little bit apprehensive, if you will. Let's imagine that you're just a kid, right? You're a kid playing at the shopping at the mall, right? And you just want to play the game of how to go up the stairs, up the escalators, by taking the escalators that come down, right? That are moving down, right? Well, if you want to get to the top, you're not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to get to the top if you just stand still. If I remember, I did it when I was a kid, and I had to go faster moving up than the escalators coming down. That's how life is. You want something out of life, you're going to put double the effort or 3 times the effort. That's why the question is not how do I make money, is how do I obtain the right knowledge to make more money? How do I become valuable? How do I obtain value in my life so people want to pay for my value? This is the reason why some people make $100 a day and some other people make $1 million a day in one day, right? It's because they find a way to be more valuable. Everybody has a price tag in this society. Think about that. So thank you, Venture to Excel, for answering that question. That was awesome. All right. Okay. The next one is it's never about the product. Never about the product. So let me give you an example. If you have the money, all the money in the world, and you want to buy a Ferrari, right? I'm not a car guy, so I'm just saying, $1 million car, right? High end, $1 million. Why do you want to buy that much of an expensive car? You can get the same job done, A to B with a Ford Fiesta or, a Beetle. Why a Ferrari? Why do you want to get that car? If you drive that car in the middle of the desert where there is no one around, do you want a Ferrari? Probably not. One, the sand is crazy, sandstorms, nobody's there, you cannot flash your car, right? So why do you want a Ferrari? Because I want to drive it downtown LA or Manhattan or in Monaco. I don't know, some expensive place where people can see my status. So it's about status. It's about ego. It's about something else than the car itself. Is it about comfort? Yeah, it's about comfort. But I guarantee you, these guys that have these expensive cars, they want to get out of that car and feel like people respect them, like people admire them, like people, wow, what a freaking cool guy. He's got a Ferrari. What the heck is going on? How do I not have that car? Envy, all those things. So you dumb that down a little bit more and you talk about the principles of why people want more money. So when you sell real estate investing opportunities, for instance, is it about real estate? That's what I keep telling people. Is it about real estate? When I train people, I always tell people, don't make it about real estate. You're going to sound great if you learn the lingo and you learn all the things that go along with being a real estate investor. Great. But they're not going to buy because you have a great product, guys. They're going to buy from you because logically it makes sense because they are lacking something that you are connecting the needs and where they're going to be if they fulfill, if the product that you're selling can fulfill their needs. It's as simple as that, guys. All right. So it's not about the product, it's about the intention. Where do these people want to go? How do they, what do they see themselves if they become a stock market expert? If they become a real estate investor expert? If they can become, an e-commerce expert? It's not about the expertise. It's about what they're going to be able to generate with those expertise. It's about all the money they're going to be able to make. It's not even about money. It's not, it's no money. It's not about money. It's what money can do for them. Family, a better house, a better future, a legacy. What happens when a parent gets neutralized by life, a disease, death? What's your family going to do once you cannot provide for your family? All those things come into play if you really think about this, guys. It's not about the product. It's never about the product. All right, I think I saw a couple of things right here. I'd rather have a D. Okay, I'd rather have a dune buggy for the desert. That's a good one. That's a good one. But um, I know what your name is, Evan. So I'm just gonna out you out right now. This is about this is such. You're saying what you really need. You don't need a Ferrari in the desert because that doesn't fulfill your needs there. That's probably going to be more problematic than a buggy, right? So that's a good insight right there. Thank you for saying that, Evelyn. Really appreciate it. I'll venture to excel. I'd rather have a Ducati motorcycle. I know. Well, you guys are crazy with those vehicles, man. That's awesome. I'd like to have both of those in a Ferrari. No, I don't care for a Ferrari. I'm just too old for that. All right, cool. All right, guys. So the question right now is, have you ever bought? Come on, guys, give me a little bit of love back. Have you guys ever bought something you don't need? Something you don't need. And what happened to that? Give me two lines. Give me two lines, guys. I bought. It's funny because my wife and I we were going to this place. It's kind of like Chinese, where they sell a bunch of stuff you never need. And I went in there and I said, "Wow, millions of dollars being spent in this store for things people do not need. I wonder what happens to a cup holder that has the face of Mickey Mouse. I don't know what that's. I probably have that for a couple of days, and then I probably misplace it. I probably forget where I put it. So, but that's just me. All right. So two lines, guys. Give me anything frivolous that you guys have ever purchased that you don't need versus something that you guys really needed. And what was the difference, right? If you can answer that, I think Yo is answering that question right here. She says, um, every time I go to Miniso, I buy stuff I don't need. And then I remember that their slogan, I didn't know I needed it. Yep, that's a good one. That's a good one. I'd rather have. Okay, cool, awesome. All right. So it's not about the product; it's about the intention. All right, we're gonna talk about this one, guys. Important that you guys understand this. I'm sorry, my voice is killing me, and I'm trying to force my words out. And sometimes I'm. If you guys can hear the end of a sentence or something, this is my voice is fading out as I say something. All right. So the last one is gonna be: don't rush the call. Do not rush the call. Here's the problem with a lot of people that can't posture somebody who cannot obtain respect cannot get the power they need. They call someone, and all of a sudden that person says, "Oh, you know what?" And this happens with a lot of setters. Setters typically are the new people on the phone, and they set the closer with someone who's driving, right? They never have the presence of mind to say, "Hey, listen, um, please make sure that when my senior director, however you call the closer, is going to give you a call, make sure, please, you're not driving. Remember, he's an expert. Remember that he is giving you 100% of his respect, and giving him back only 20% of respect is not going to look good on me. So, in our or you, right? So, do me a favor. You got to be at a desk, and this listen to this takeaway, which we're going to go into a lot. Um, you got to be at a desk. You have to have a pen and piece of paper. This is giving people command, right? Exercising respect and power. Have a pen and piece of paper. It has to be a quiet place. So if the TV's on or whatever, you can turn it off, or you can go into a different room where your family can watch TV. Well, your wife should be there. If the wife, well, anyway, we'll talk about that. So that because my senior director is going to be in this office and is going to give you 100% of his attention. That's the right way to set someone in posture that next call, right? But sometimes setters just forget doing that, or they don't have the presence of mind, or nobody trained them well enough. Typically, that's the case. And then the closer gets on the phone, and this guy's driving, going through traffic, and now the closer has to say, "Listen, I can't go on like this. You're supposed to. This is a business call. When I take business calls, I make sure I'm in the right environment." So what happens, instead of the closer saying that, he keeps moving forward or through with the call. And this guy is going to be constant. Let's say, for instance, I don't know if you guys ever been, whoever's lives in New York or grew up in New York or whatever, you know that if you're leaving Manhattan in your car, if you're driving your car at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday night, or even worse, Friday night, gee, if you are on the Long Island Expressway, if you're just crossing the Queens tunnel, it's just going to be crazy, right? And you're not going to have the time to pay attention. You're not going to have the time. So the most logical thing this person is going to do is going to tell you, "Listen, I'm sorry, I've got to take care of traffic. I'm trying to hurry there. Why don't we just continue this call by the time I get to my house?" And then the closer says, "Well, let me tell you quickly how this works, and then how you." Well, first of all, I expect that someone like that would make it to be a closer. But if that's the case, that closer is probably screwing up a lot of deals. Setters, same thing with setters. They're not getting any sets, and all of a sudden, somebody's in a hurry. "Hey, my kids are here. I'm picking up my kids from school," and then they want to rush the call. What you're supposed to say, if you're a setter, I'm not even talking about the closers, because the closers on another level, right? But if you're a setter, what you're going to do is you're going to tell that person, "Listen, I know you're in a hurry, and you even especially if they were not expecting your call, of course. If they were expecting your call, then there's a little bit of a different dealing there, right? A little different treatment there. But if they weren't expecting your call, then you tell them, "Listen, why don't we do this? Why don't we just continue this conversation at a later time, and we reschedule? I can't finish the conversation right now." There's a lot of prospects. They'll tell you, "Why don't we just finish this quick enough? In about 5 minutes, my kids are going to be coming out of school, and I have 5 minutes. Let's do it." Don't do it. Don't rush the call. Just tell them, "Listen, 5 minutes is not going to be enough, and it's not going to be justice to the reason why you have the call. So why don't we do this? Why don't we reschedule this call? But I want you to remember me. It's going to be whatever time you tell me, but I need you to do me a favor. since I'm going to give you the respect to be there when I call, I need you to be there when I call because I'm going to be giving you a call. Make sure they remember you. Make sure that you posture yourself. That's how you get respect and power, guys. All right. So don't ever rush a freaking call because it's your time. Time is money. If you're just rushing through calls, you're not going to be able to set anybody, let alone close somebody. All right. So that's extremely important to understand. All right. So a couple of things here. Anytime I go to, okay, I thought there was a new comment or whatever, but I guess not. All right, cool. No problem. All right, we're going to the last one, and this is, we just got the last one done, so it was early. We did pretty good time. All right, guys. And I just really want to thank you guys for hanging out with me, Rosa, Venture to Excel, Alejandra, Pantera, Mr. Pixel. Great to have you here. Evelyn, thank you for coming here. Paula, wonderful. I really appreciate you being here. Joey, and that's my wife, of course. Mars or Marcella, thank you for being here. Aldemar, awesome. Thank you also for being here. Janet, I can say more. Thank you for being here, and everybody else. Thank you so much. And I'm going to let you go get back to your business. Let's have fun. We're going to be here Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I need to see you here, guys, all of you, and be prepared. Let's fight a little bit. All right, give me some hate, something. All right, guys, stay alive, stay cool, don't do anything dangerous, and I'll see you next time.